For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Shannon de Rehove. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me for Suttner's View, a weekly commentary on South Africa's political scene. Welcome, Raymond.
Thank you very much.
Now, the Gauteng government and the police are intent on describing the attacks on foreigners that took place recently as criminal but not xenophobic. Why do you think they're doing this?
I don't understand it because xenophobic attacks are also criminal, but I think they may think that the notion of xenophobia leads to a loss of confidence of investors and things like that. But the people who are being attacked are not the investors. The people who are being attacked, it seems to me, are very vulnerable groups. The people who've come here as IT specialists or as CEOs of big multinational companies are not experiencing this xenophobic attack. I think it's very important to name something. And xenophobia refers to hatred of foreigners and various acts of vulnerability. Now this young kid, Malaika Wazania, written quite a good article in the Sunday Independent, but she refers to it as Afrophobia. Now, it's not only Afrophobia, because some of the people who suffered were Pakistanis and Bangladeshis. So it is attacks on people from the south, and in this case, these are people who have got a successful business plan, which it's very hard to be successful in the townships, because when you buy in bulk, in the case of Checkers, Pick n Pay, and these other supermarkets, you're able to sell things at lower prices. And the disadvantage that spaza shops have had in the past is that they have not been able to buy in bulk, and consequently people have sometimes wanted to take taxis and do bigger shops once a month or whatever it is outside the township. Now what these Somalians particularly, but also I'm sure there's a grouping together of other communities have done, is first of all they have helped one another with startup capital. So the startup capital has been higher than in the case of the average South African black business person. Secondly, they have brought together, and consequently the cost has been lower, and they've marked up things in a very limited way. Now, how they are successful seems to me to be related less to that than the work ethic that they adopt, which is very, very long hours, so that you can go any hour to these places. You can go early in the morning, before work, long before the other shops have opened, and get things for your kids, for school, things like that. And the markup is low, but because the hours are long and the sales are high, they are profitable. And many of these people have got, despite these attacks of this week, have got quite close ties with the communities. They extend credit to them if they don't have money. If old people haven't got their pension payout or their social grants, they will lend them money till they get it, and so forth. And all of this is quite an interesting business model. It sometimes goes along with abuse. For example, someone who was doing a study in the Western Cape told me, after interviewing a trader, that what the trader told him happened is, they sell, you don't have to buy a packet of cigarettes. If you want one cigarette, they will sell it. and someone will come in there and stand for a long time and say, I want X. Then the shopkeeper gets this. Then the person says, no, I want Y. And you know, this sort of thing carries on for a very long time. So to make a sale which is worth a very minuscule amount, there is a degree of disrespect shown. Now, that's not always the case, but this gives you an example of the conditions of vulnerability where the foreign trader does not want to do something that can lead a member of the community to incite others against them. So they're very successful, and I think that what the looting seems to suggest is that there was this incident, and if it is true that the Somalian shopkeeper shot this child, the law must take its course. Although some of the reports say that this kid had repeatedly robbed his shop. And there's a problem there. Do they get the level of protection that others get? So they must abide by the law. But then once there had been this killing and looting started, we see a phenomenon where there's a high level of unemployment, there's gross social inequality, and consequently the ethics that are easier to observe when you are not starving go by the wayside, and people just loot. So I think there's a range of contexts in which we've got to understand it. It doesn't help us to deal with it by denying that it's xenophobia. It was not people who lived in these places who were attacked. But also what I think is very shocking to many people is that these are strongholds of the struggle. Alex, Soweto, various parts of Soweto, Katlehong, I think also Kwatema, I'm not sure.
And Kagiso.
And Kagiso is a very strong area of the struggle. Other thing is, these are also in places that are named after heroes like Bram Fischerville and Sloverville.
Do you think the police could have handled things better?
You see, I don't want to be readily blaming the police in many situations where the police are acting on the authority of their political heads. Now, in this particular case, there are many reports of the police standing by while people were looting. Police are, after all, members of the community or of communities that are intolerant of foreign Africans. And consequently, they, like the community, feel when it comes to the final analysis, these people are fair game. So that was one thing that was reported, that police stood by. There's also footage of one policeman himself looting. So that is, I would say the police did not do enough to protect these people.
What do you think we can do to prevent situations like this?
Well, I think what we learn from this is that whatever our constitution may say, whatever the values on which the new South Africa was formed, the freedom that is supposed to be indivisible is seen as not belonging to foreign Africans. The Freedom Charter says South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. Now, when foreign people come across the border, from that moment they are subjected to abuse, asked for bribes. When women want to get accommodation, they told they must sleep with someone. When they want to set up a stall for selling, the police harass them, or it is routine to bribe the police. So we need to understand that we need role models who teach us that these are fellow human beings like all of us. There was a Somalian on the radio saying this. We are just human beings. He was not speaking with bitterness. Now we need our leaders, not just political leaders, faith leaders, business leaders, all of them, to say to people, let us live in peace with these people. During our struggle for freedom, many of these countries housed our people. So I think that we need to recognize that there's a gap between what we proclaim and what happens. We need to bridge that gap.
Thank you very much for your insight.
Thank you.
That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about addressing xenophobic attacks in South Africa's townships.